So, in light of the new Sight and Sound 50 Greatest Films poll, I thought I would talk about my 10 favorite films, which I want to stress are my favorite films. I'm not saying these are the greatest films, they're just my favorite films. And I kind of just wanted to talk about how I saw them the first time and why I love them so much. Not necessarily in a let's break it down critically way, just why they resonate with me. So I'm going to go starting with number 1 and go to number 10, I think. Yes. And this list I pretty much came up with, I think, in 2006, something like that. But there are two new additions to it in the last few years, so I'll tell you what those are. So number 1 is The English Patient, which I just really love. And I first saw it, I think I was 14, and my mother had bought it on widescreen VHS tape because she hadn't seen it, but it won 9 damn Oscars. And if she was going to watch it, she was going to watch it in widescreen because our rental store only had full screen VHS tapes. And I was not 14, I was, I think I was 11 or 12 because I was in middle school. And we had it, and no one had watched it. We'd known this VHS tape for years, and I was sick one day, and I was like, I'm going to watch The English Patient. And I remember loving it, but not, like, that was the only time I saw it, I guess. And then in high school, I lent it to my friend, Elise Kingsley, whose grandma stole it. She stole my VHS tape, so I didn't have a chance to see it again. And then I was in college, and I think this was 2006. I think this is when I came up with this list. My friend Erin lent it to me because I saw it on her desk, and I was like, I must watch this movie. I haven't seen it in years, and my friend's grandma stole it. And I watched it while I was working on a paper, and then I watched it again, and then I watched it again, and I think within a 3-day period, I watched it 4 or 5 times, and we watched it with her, and then I bought the book, and I read the book, and I bought the DVD, and I've seen it so many times, it is ridiculous, and I just really love it. Number 2 is Gone with the Wind, which is probably one of the first movies I ever saw, and I used to watch it on TBS or TNT with my mom. This was before Turner Classic Movies existed, because that's 97, I think, is when that channel started, and this was in, like, 92. And they would show it on Saturdays, and we would do all the laundry, because it took, like, 5 or 6 hours to show Gone with the Wind on TV with commercial breaks. And, I would wait for the I don't know nothing about birth and no babies scene, because I loved Prissy, and I still do, and Clark Gable, and just, I really love that movie, and I will always love that movie. Number 3 is Pretty in Pink, which I first saw on Encore right around that same time, back when I thought Encore showed 80s movies, when I realized now that actually they showed contemporary movies, and I probably first saw it in, like, 1990, which was still almost the 80s, so it was a contemporary movie, but I always thought that channel showed 80s movies, because 80s were contemporary back then, and I've seen that a million times, and I never owned it, though, for some reason, and then I went to college, and I went to Amoeba and discovered, used DVDs, which was not a thing where I came from, and that was the very first DVD that I bought when I was in college. I bought it, like, September of 2004, and I've watched that DVD so many times now, and even from the first time I saw it, I agreed with that ending, and Andy should be with freaking Blaine, because that's who she loved, and the whole point of the movie is that you can love someone, but that doesn't mean they're going to love you back, and Ducky needs to get over it, and people who love Ducky need to get over it. He ends up with the original Buffy the Vampire Slayer. I think he wins. Number 4 is Little Women, which I saw in theaters probably in February or March of 1995. It came out in December of 94, and my theater would get things a few months late. And I watched it with my mom, and I remember falling in love with Gabriel Byrne, and after the movie was over, it was like me and my mom and these little old ladies, and we talked about how much we all loved Gabriel Byrne, and basically, I mean, I love Winona Ryder in that movie, and I think that's one of the greatest performances by an actress ever, but Gabriel Byrne is just so hot that's really what does it for me in that movie. Number 5 is It's a Wonderful Life, which I first saw, I think, in 1990 or 92, somewhere in that time period, because we were down in Los Angeles for my uncle's 30th wedding anniversary. Yeah, 30th wedding anniversary, and we were at like a Blockbuster that was selling used cassette tapes, and they had It's a Wonderful Life, and my mom was like, let's buy it, and then we watched it every year for Christmas. Since then, every year, It's a Wonderful Life, and I've seen it many times besides Christmas, and George Bailey, and Jimmy Stewart, and Frank Capra, and it's a timeless, perfect fucking movie. Number 6 is one of those new editions I was telling you about. It's Bright Star by Jane Campion, which came out in 2009, and it did not play near me, so I had to wait until I could rent it, and I rented it from Netflix as soon as it was available, and I watched it with my mother, and I wish I hadn't because I really, really wanted to cry, and I don't like crying in front of people, so I waited, and as soon as it was over, I was like, oh, I'll take it back to put it in the mail, and the post office is like a 5-minute drive from my house, and I drove it, and I put it in the post office, and then I drove up into the mountains, literally the mountains. I think I drove like 15 miles up into the highest peak, because I used to live in the middle of nowhere, and I sat up in this mountains at like 7 o'clock at night, and I just cried and cried and cried and cried and cried for hours, and then I drove home. I was gone for like 40 minutes, and my mom was like, so you were gone for quite a while, and I was like, yeah, I was, it's okay, and I immediately bought it on DVD, and I proceeded to watch it like, I don't know, probably once a week for weeks and weeks and weeks and weeks after that, and I've seen it so many times, and it makes me cry every time. Number 7 is The Thin Red Line, which I rented when I was going through George Clooney phase my freshman year of high school, and that's a whole nother kettle of fish, and George Clooney's only in it for 5 minutes, just so you know, towards the end of the movie. But I loved it so much, and it was the movie that really made me realize that cinema can be something so much more than just entertainment and some sort of form of art that I had no idea it could be, and I return to that movie often. I just love it so much. Number 8 is The Good, the Bad, and the Ugly, which I watched with my father probably when I was 6 or 7. I don't remember the first time I saw it, but I've seen it so many times, and I've seen it at the PFA on the big screen, which I just cannot tell you how great that movie is on the big screen, and it's just, everything about it is great. But what the number one thing that's great about it is Tuco. You know, The Man with No Name is great. Lee Van Cleef is great, but Eli Wallach as Tuco is what makes that movie. Number 9 would be Amelie, which I saw when I was in high school. A friend, Elise Kingsley, whose grandma stole the English Patient, lent me that movie, and I loved it so much. And I immediately bought it on DVD, and I've seen it many times, and it's just another movie that I will return to again and again when I need a pick-me-up. And the last film on this list, number 10, which is also a new edition, is Scorsese's After Hours, which I rented from Netflix because I saw one screen cap of him looking at the Wanted poster of himself, and I was like, that's it, I need to see this movie, and I rented it from Netflix immediately, and as soon as it was over, I was like, this is everything I always wanted in a movie, and I immediately bought it on Amazon for $5, and 2 days later I watched it again, and that winter I probably watched it once a week for a couple of months, and I've seen it many times, and every time I watch it, there's something new to love about how great it is, and how it's a perfect black comedy. It is a perfect movie. The 2 movies that Bright Star and After Hours replaced would be Moulin Rouge and Billy Wilder's Sabrina, which I still really love. And if I was going to do a top 15, would be in there, along with Children of Men, the Third Man, the fucking Third Man, and probably, I don't know what number 15 would be. All Dogs Go to Heaven, maybe, I don't know. Okay, so those are my list. That's my movies. That's why I love them. Goodbye.